Accepting is seeing, never say, truth can be stranger than fiction once more. Composed by Kelvin W. Nathan. Distributed by Book Recordings Office. Acquaintance, you've been instructed with accept that truth can be stranger than fiction, that you really want proof before you can trust something to be genuine. Be that as it may, the fact of the matter is undeniably more impressive. Accepting is seeing. What you decide to trust shapes your world. Your convictions make the focal point through which you experience the world, and they are the groundwork of all that you draw in, accomplish, and become. At the point when you shift your mentality and embrace this rule, you open the capacity to make the existence you've generally longed for. Conviction isn't simply a detached express, it's a power. Your convictions carry on like magnets, drawing encounters, open doors, and results that line up with what you believe. Assuming you accept the world as brimming with shortage, battle, and constraint, that is precisely the exact thing you will see reflected in your life. Yet, when you trust in overflow, probability, and your own power, you start to see entryways open, challenges break up, and your fantasies come to fruition. The primary standard of accepting is seeing is understanding that your considerations are inventive. Your brain is continually molding your world, and your convictions decide the energy you project. At the point when you trust in your capacity to accomplish something, even before there's evidence, you enact a strong inward and outer shift. This conviction directs your activities, draws in the perfect individuals and open doors, and adjusts your life to your vision. Another key rule is confidence over dread. Time and again, we let uncertainty and dread direct what we accept is conceivable. Be that as it may, confidence is the underpinning of making what you need to see. Conviction doesn't need every one of the responses front and center, it requires trust all the while. At the point when you have confidence, you allow yourself to dream greater, face challenges, and seek after objectives that might feel far off. Confidence transforms unthinkable into unavoidable. At last, activity supports conviction. At the point when you go about like your vision is genuine, you conform to its energy and move it nearer. Your activities make an impression on the universe. I accept this as mine, and I'm prepared for it. This book will show you how to change your outlook, rework your convictions, and saddle the force of accepting is seeing. By and by, you'll never again trust that confirmation will confide in your fantasies, you'll make the proof yourself. Could it be said that you are prepared to step into a daily existence formed by conviction and watch, as it turns into your world? The excursion starts now. You probably won't know, yet your convictions shape what you see as the real world, not the reverse way around. It's an entrancing idea frequently neglected, right? This provocative peculiarity is shown in different mental examinations, similar to the effect of a self-influenced consequence. It challenges the recognizable saying truth can be stranger than fiction and flips it on its head. In any case, how does this all work? Also, how might you use this for your potential benefit? Keep close by as we unload the force of confidence in forming our discernments and, eventually, our world. For more data about the digital book adaptation of this sound, check the video depiction or visit audiobooksoffice.com. We notice that 69% of you who pay attention to our video are not yet bought into the channel. If it's not too much trouble, assist with supporting the channel by raising a ruckus around town button and loving the video. Gratitude for moving us to make more satisfied for you. Section 1 The Force of Discernment. How frequently have you contemplated the force of your insight? A key part of your mental structure you've probably underestimated. However, it's necessary to how you get it and interface with your general surroundings. Discernment, from a fundamental perspective, is the interaction by which we select, coordinate, and decipher tactile data to make significant encounters and understandings. Contemplate how you see tone, for example. Your cerebrum gets signals from your eyes and changes those signs into the energetic, various tones you see. Notwithstanding, if you somehow happen to analyze this cycle top to bottom, you'd understand that tone doesn't exist impartially on the planet. It's a making of your discernment, molded by the manner in which your mind deciphers light frequencies. Therefore, your view of variety is extraordinarily your own, shaped by your individual natural and mental cycles. Be that as it may, discernment rises above the simple understanding of actual upgrades. A mind-boggling process includes your previous encounters, social foundation, individual convictions, and current feelings. These elements join to shape your perceptual reality, affecting how you see and figure out the world. Your convictions, for example, can affect how you see data, prompting what therapists call tendency to look for predictable feedback. Discernment, thusly, isn't just an inactive course of engrossing data. It's a functioning, unique cycle where you build your own world. It's strong, molding the way in which you see the world, yet the way that you draw in with it. By understanding the force of discernment, you gain knowledge into your mental cycles and their part in forming your existence. The truth isn't level-headed. In spite of the fact that you could accept your view of the world mirrors an objective reality, the fact of the matter is very opposite. You're not only an uninvolved recipient of outside boosts. You're a functioning member forming your own existence. Think about the exemplary illustration of a rose. You could see it as red, smell its sweet aroma, and feel its smooth petals. However, is that the rose's objective reality? No, it's your abstract reality, made by your tangible encounters. That rose's objective reality, absent any trace of human discernment, may be on a very basic level unique. It's just an assortment of iotas with no inborn variety, smell, or surface. Envision a world seen through the eyes of a honey bee or a snake, with their bright and infrared vision, separately. Their world would be unfathomably not the same as our own. This features that the truth is abstract, reliant upon the spectator's tactile contraption and mental understanding. Presently you could contend that science furnishes us with a goal perspective on the real world. In any case, recollect, even logical perceptions are human translations, made by apparatuses planned by human personalities. Indeed, even the laws of physical science aren't all-inclusive bits of insight, yet models, valuable approximations of how the universe appears to act under specific circumstances. Thusly, it's fundamental to perceive that your discernment isn't the unadulterated fact of the matter, however an emotional understanding. Comprehend that accepting is seeing isn't simply a philosophical idea, yet a useful manual for graphing your emotional reality. Your convictions shape your discernment, and thus, your apparent reality. Thus, challenge your convictions, expand your discernments, and you may very well reshape your existence. Section 3 The inner being. Expanding on the possibility that our discernment shapes our existence, we should think about the job of our psychological symbolism, frequently alluded to as the imagination. It's anything but an actual substance, however a figurative idea insinuating our capacity to picture, envision, and recollect. You utilize your inner consciousness when you review the substance of a friend or family member or envision a fantasy excursion. This interior representation process shapes your view of your general surroundings. In mental brain research, mental symbolism is a huge area of study. It's accepted to assume a crucial part in memory, spatial comprehension, and critical thinking. For example, you could intellectually practice a show or imagine a course to another area. You're not truly seeing these things, yet you're making an emotional reality to your eye. Nonetheless, it's basic to take note of that psychological symbolism is definitely not a careful replication of actual vision. It's abstract and affected by individual encounters, feelings, and mental cycles. So two individuals can picture a similar item in an unexpected way. In addition, the striking quality of mental symbolism shifts among people. Certain individuals experience hyperphantasia, where they can imagine exhaustively, while others have aphantasia, the powerlessness to frame mental pictures. In the maze of discernment, your assumptions frequently act as the planner, making your existence before you even experience it. An immense range of mental investigations proves this statement. Your understanding of your general surroundings isn't just an inactive admission of tactile data. All things being equal, it's a powerful interaction where your previous encounters, inclinations, and assumptions effectively shape the manner in which you see reality. Think about the capability of your cerebrum in this cycle. It doesn't just record information like a camera, it deciphers and coordinates it as indicated by laid-out brain connections and examples. Likewise, your assumptions can direct the focal point through which your mind processes data. Essentially, you're inclined to see what you hope to see. For example, produce the fake treatment results, an unmistakable instance of assumptions directing reality. Patients frequently show improvement essentially in light of the fact that they hope to, regardless of whether the medication they're given is just a sugar pill. Their faith in recuperation impacts their genuine recuperation. However, the force of assumption doesn't exclusively dwell in that frame of mind of the mental. It can likewise influence actual peculiarities. Concentrates on in quantum material science, for example, propose that the result of a trial can be impacted by the eyewitness assumptions, a peculiarity known as spectator impact. A conviction, on a very basic level, is a firm feeling that something is valid, paying little heed to proof or rationale. A strong build can shape your discernment. It can channel what you see, hear, and feel, regardless of whether it's in opposition to the real world. This is something other than specific consideration. It's about how you decipher and give importance to your encounters. Think about optical deceptions, for instance. In any event, when you're mindful of the stunt, you can't resist the urge to see the deception on the grounds that your cerebrum has a thought about how the world functions, and it impacts your discernment. Analysts frequently allude to this as hierarchical handling, where your prior information and convictions influence how you see the world. The force of conviction can likewise be found in a self-influenced consequence. Patients who accept they're getting treatment frequently report upgrades in their condition. In any event, when the treatment is a sugar pill, their conviction impacts their view of their well-being. Understanding the impact of conviction on insight is crucial. It can assist you with scrutinizing your own convictions and how they may be forming your insight. Keep in mind, it's not generally about what you see, yet more about what you accept. Each time you go with a choice or structure an assessment, you're probably working on a series of expectations. These aren't guaranteed to negative. Rather, they're principal to your capacity to work in an always impacting world. Suppositions go about as mental easy routes, assisting you with handling immense measures of data rapidly. You don't have the opportunity or ability to scrutinize each piece of information that comes your direction. In this way, you utilize your previous encounters, your impulses, and your qualities to fill in the spaces. This is definitely not a cognizant interaction. It's a characteristic piece of human perception. Be that as it may, there's a proviso. In spite of the fact that suspicions work with speedy direction, they can misshape your impression of the real world. You will more often than not understand what you hope to see, not what's really there. This mental predisposition is known as preference for non-threatening information. It's a mental peculiarity where you decipher data in a manner that affirms your prior convictions. Here's where the expression accepting is seen gains importance. You see the world not for all intents and purposes, but rather as you trust it to be. Your presumptions, going about as a channel, change your view of the real world. It's an unavoidable outcome. You trust something to be valid, and your insights build up that conviction, causing it to appear to be significantly more genuine. Understanding the job of presumptions in forming your discernments can prompt more precise translations of the world. By perceiving and testing your suspicions, you can see reality all the more equitably. Keep in mind, it's not continuously truth can be stranger than fiction. Generally, accepting is seeing. Notwithstanding being able to see, deciphering what you see can frequently represent a test. You're outfitted with the staff of sight, yet the manner in which you process visuals isn't only about the actual demonstration of seeing. It's more intricate, including mental understanding. You could believe that what you see is an objective reality, yet entirely it's to a great extent emotional. What you see is definitely not an essential fact of the matter, yet an insight separated through your own focal point. Considering a straightforward model, think about an optical deception. You look at it, yet what you see isn't what's genuinely there. You're seeing what your cerebrum deciphers in view of previous encounters, convictions, and presumptions. Your sight lets you know a certain something, yet the truth may be completely unique. This peculiarity highlights the way that seeing, in itself, isn't sufficient to understand the full extent of the real world. Presently, consider what is happening like perusing an individual's feelings. You might see a grin, however, does it indicate bliss, or is it veiling distress? Here, your sight alone can't unwind reality. It requires grasping, compassion, and the capacity to see past the apparent. Fundamentally, seeing is a venturing stone, not the objective. The excursion to understanding reality includes more than sight. It calls for translation, conviction, and the eagerness to look past what's just apparent. It's tied in with recognizing that your discernment can be defective or restricted, and that seeing is for sure sufficiently not. So recollect, accepting is seeing, not the opposite way around. Section 8. The impediments of sight. Having recognized the need of conviction and understanding in deciphering reality, we currently direct our concentration toward the constraints of sight. While sight is to be sure an essential channel for social occasion information about your general surroundings, it's significant you understand its impediments. First and foremost, sight can catch a restricted range of light. You can't see bright or infrared light, for instance, that a few creatures can. This impediment implies there's a massive measure of data about the world that you're passing up. Furthermore, sight can be handily tricked by optical deceptions. You've probably seen pictures that seem to move, yet when you center around a solitary point, it becomes obvious that nothing's moving by any means. This shows that what you see can be controlled and isn't generally illustrative of the real world. Thirdly, your sight is restricted by distance and impediments. You can't understand what's going on behind a shut entryway, nor might you at any point see minuscule life forms without the guide of a magnifying lens. This impediment confines how much data you can accumulate about your environmental elements. At long last, sight depends on light. Without any light, you can't see anything by any stretch of the imagination. This delineates how subordinate your sight is on outside factors. These limits don't make sight excess. It stays an extraordinarily helpful apparatus for navigating the world. Nonetheless, they really do outline the requirement for conviction and understanding to enhance the information you accumulate through sight. All things considered, seeing isn't continuously accepting. Section 9. Insight is private crossing through life. You continually depend on your discernments. They shape your considerations, impact your choices, and direct your activities. Notwithstanding, it's imperative to comprehend that these discernments are an individual matter remarkable and intended for you. They aren't widespread bits of insight, but instead your understanding of the world in view of your faculties and encounters. Your insights are framed by a horde of elements. Your childhood, social foundation, individual encounters, and, surprisingly, your ongoing state of mind can influence how you see your general surroundings. Every one of these components assumes a part in shading your discernment, making it unmistakably yours. For example, assuming you've been brought up in a family that values difficult work and discipline, you could see an individual who focuses on unwinding and recreation adversely, deciphering their activities as lethargy. This discernment is molded by your encounters and values. It doesn't mirror a well-known fact about that individual's personality or hard-working attitude. The fact that perceptions can be adjusted makes in like manner, it quite important. They aren't permanently established. As you develop, learn, and have new encounters, your discernments can change. For this reason it's important to be available to new perspectives, to scrutinize your discernments, and to hold back nothing than sticking to previously established inclinations. Section 10. How we decipher reality. Diving into the profundities of human cognizance, you enter a space where the truth isn't just noticed, yet deciphered. This translation includes a perplexing transaction of your faculties, brain, encounters, and social settings. It's about what you see, yet the way that you see it. Visual discernment is definitely not a latent cycle. It's dynamic and productive. You don't simply accept in that frame of mind as it is, you decipher it in light of your previous information and convictions. The item you see isn't simply an impression of the outside world, however, a development of your brain. This implies that your convictions can shape your insight. Think about this. Two individuals can take a gander at a similar composition, yet decipher it in an unexpected way. One could consider it to be a showstopper, while the other as a common piece of workmanship. This is on the grounds that their translation isn't exclusively founded on the tangible information, yet their previous encounters, social foundation, and individual preferences. Language, as well, assumes a critical part in molding how we might interpret reality. The words you use to depict your encounters can significantly affect how you decipher them. Assuming you utilize positive language, you're bound to see your encounters emphatically as well as the other way around. Fundamentally, insight isn't a mirror that precisely mirrors the objective reality, however, a focal point that tones and shapes it as per your convictions, encounters, and social settings. Therefore, understanding how we decipher the truth is vital to figuring out our insights. It's not only about truth can be stranger than fiction, however, accepting is seeing. Section 11, the effect of predispositions. Expanding upon how we might interpret discernment as a build of psyche, we should now direct our concentration toward the job predispositions play in this cycle. You may not be deliberately mindful of it, yet your inclinations impact how you see and decipher your general surroundings. They go about as channels, shading your discernment in unobtrusive and not really unpretentious ways. These predispositions can come from many sources: your previous encounters, social foundation, and cultural standards, to give some examples. They can shape your view of the real world, frequently making you see what you expect or need to see, as opposed to what is really there. This peculiarity is known as tendency to look for predetermined feedback. It's the propensity to look for, decipher, and recollect data in a way that affirms one's prior convictions or speculations. Another significant predisposition is the in-bunch inclination, the propensity to incline toward the people who have a place with our own gathering. This inclination can lead you to frame slanted impression of individuals from various societies, races, or gatherings. While these predispositions are much of the time oblivious, they can have serious ramifications. They can influence your navigation, judgment, and associations with others. You could pass up important points of view and encounters essentially in light of the fact that they don't line up with your imbued predispositions. Understanding the effect of inclinations is a crucial stage towards defeating them. By recognizing their reality, you can begin to dismantle your predispositions, challenge your suspicions, and go for the gold objective view of the real world. Keep in mind, accepting isn't continuously seeing some of the time. It's tied in with addressing what you see. Part 12, Channels of the Psyche. In the maze of our brains, endless channels work, forming our discernment and comprehension of the real world. These channels, intrinsic and obtained, capability as focal points through which we view the world. They're not only aloof screens but rather dynamic mediators, continually shaping our encounters. Mental channels, for example, process data from our faculties. They choose what's significant, what's not, and what to disregard. You've probably had the experience of sifting through foundation commotion in a clamoring bistro to zero in on a discussion. That is your mental channel at work. Profound channels, then again, variety our discernments with sentiments. At any point saw how a radiant day appears to be more brilliant when you're blissful, or the way that the world seems dull when you're miserable. That is a close-to-home channel in real life. Not the world, yet your close-to-home state changes your insight. Social and social channels, as well, assume urgent parts. They're imparted in us by our family, schooling, and society. They guide how we might interpret what's typical, adequate, or no. You could see a similar occasion uniquely in contrast to somebody from another culture in light of the fact that your social channels vary. These channels can be advantageous, assisting us with exploring complex conditions. Nonetheless, they can likewise daze us, limiting our point of view. Developing familiarity with these channels is fundamental for a more goal comprehension of the real world. Keep in mind, you're an onlooker as well as a functioning member in making your existence, and it begins with grasping the channels of your brain. While you could accept that your view of the truth is even-handed, the truth contortion impact recommends in any case. This idea, established in mental brain research, demonstrates that your convictions, predispositions, and feelings can strikingly twist your impression of your general surroundings. It's not just about seeing what you need to see, yet it's more about how you accept affects what you see as the real world. Consider the corona impact, an exemplary illustration of reality mutilation. You meet somebody, and they appear to be wonderful, alluring, or appealing. In light of this positive initial feeling, you property other good characteristics to them, like knowledge or consideration, with next to no real proof. Your confidence in their agreeableness misshapes your impression of their genuine person. Additionally, preference for non-threatening information is one more appearance of the truth-bending impact. At the point when you favor data affirms your prior convictions or values, subsequently contorting your perspective on the real world. For example, assuming that you firmly trust in a specific political philosophy, you're bound to acknowledge data that upholds this belief system and excuse data that goes against it. Basically, the truth mutilation impact represents how your brain is definitely not an inactive recipient of data, yet a functioning constructor of the real world. An influential idea can assist you with understanding the reason why individuals see the world contrastingly and why basically inspecting your suppositions and predispositions is vital. As the maxim goes, accepting is seeing, not the opposite way around. Section 14. A self-influenced consequence. At any point contemplated the force of your brain over your body? Indeed, consider a self-influenced consequence a great representation of how conviction can impact actual results. This idea alludes to the peculiarity where you improve or recuperate not as a result of any genuine treatment, but rather in light of the fact that you accept you're being dealt with. In clinical preliminaries, a fake treatment is an innocuous, idle substance or methodology given to one gathering, while another gathering gets the real treatment. Astoundingly, members in the fake treatment bunch frequently show improvement, flagging the psyche's job in actual well-being. As such, on the off chance that you accept a pill or method will help, it frequently does, regardless of whether it's without dynamic fixings or restorative worth. Presently, you could ponder, how does this occur? All things considered, it's essentially about assumption. Your cerebrum expects a positive result, setting off physiological reactions. You're on a very basic level fooling your body into recuperating itself. Remarkably, a self-influenced consequence's solidarity changes. Factors like the pill's size, variety, and cost, and the specialist's consolations can enhance it, exhibiting how profoundly instilled our affiliations and convictions are. Be that as it may, this isn't a support to leave veritable treatment for fake treatments. It's a delineation of the significant exchange among psyche and body and the force of conviction. A self-influenced consequence isn't a fix-all, however a verification the thought accepting is seeing. It's an update that insight isn't just a detached receipt of data, yet a functioning, interpretative interaction that can, plainly, change our actual reality. Section 15. Psyche over issue. Outfitting the force of conviction, you can apply command over your body in manners that resist the customary way of thinking. This idea, known as psyche over issue, places that our considerations, perspectives, and convictions can considerably impact our actual well-being and capacities. It's not necessary to focus on excusing the significance of outside factors, yet rather perceiving the essential job that our psyche plays in forming our world. In the area of brain science, this is no new disclosure. For example, psychoneuroimmunology research demonstrates the way that our profound state can influence our insusceptible reaction. Stress, tension, and burdensome states can debilitate the safe reaction, while positive feelings improve it. You're not only a latent beneficiary of outer conditions, your psyche effectively deciphers and answers these conditions, influencing your general well-being. It's additionally significant that this idea isn't exclusively attached to well-being. Numerous competitors use mental symbolism procedures to improve their presentation. By envisioning achievement, they're on a very basic level preparation their minds to make that progress. It's a captivating show of how our convictions can form our capacities. Notwithstanding, proceeding cautiously here is fundamental. Mind over issue isn't a challenge to disregard clinical counsel or actual constraints. It's anything but an enchanted stunt, yet a device for cultivating versatility and prosperity. Between our psychological and actual selves and utilizing this information to encourage a better, more adjusted presence. Section 16. The pattern of good following good. Diving into the space of the pattern of good following good, it's fundamental to comprehend its principal premise you draw and what you center around. This standard, established in quantum physical science, recommends that like draws in like your contemplations, sentiments, and mentalities set up for your world. You're an observer in your life, yet a functioning member, forming your reality through your convictions and assumptions. To embrace this idea, we should investigate a relationship. Envision your psyche is a strong radio transmitter, broadcasting frequencies to the universe in light of your prevailing contemplations and feelings. These frequencies, thus, resound with comparable energy designs, bringing them into your life. Consequently, positive contemplations adjust you to positive encounters, while cynicism achieves horrible conditions. Be that as it may, it's sufficiently not to think positive contemplations just. The pattern of good following good requires a more profound degree of legitimacy. You can't deceive the universe with superficial confidence. Your convictions should line up with your viewpoints and feelings, making a brought-together front that draws in the ideal result. Understanding the job of activity in the pattern of energy attracting similar energy is likewise basic. While the facts confirm that contemplations can show reality, they should be combined with proactive strides towards your objectives. The universe answers your responsibility in devotion, adjusting conditions, open doors, and assets in support of yourself. To close, the pattern of good following good is a powerful instrument for making your world. By deliberately coordinating your contemplations, sentiments, and activities, you can build a daily existence that reflects your most profound longings and most noteworthy goals. Keep in mind, in this manner, to zero in on what you need, not on what you don't need. Section 17 Insight and Feelings. Understanding how discernment and feelings entwine is crucial for appreciating the force of the pattern of good following good. You see the world through your faculties, yet feelings tone and shape these discernments. Feeling is, in a general sense, the focal point through which you see the world. It's about what you see, yet additionally the way that you feel about what you see. Take the case of strolling into a room loaded with individuals. One individual could see this as a happy social occasion, feeling bliss and expectation. Another could see it as an upsetting circumstance, feeling tension or dread. Same room, same individuals, yet unique profound reactions shape various discernments. Feelings additionally impact your particular consideration, the cycle by which you center around specific upgrades while disregarding others. In the event that you're feeling blissful, you're bound to see good improvements, similar to a companion's grin or a commendation. On the off chance that you're feeling miserable, you might zero in additional on pessimistic boosts, similar to a basic remark or a glare. Discernment is certainly not a detached interaction, it's a functioning, dynamic, and profound one. All that you see is sifted through your close-to-home state, which, thusly, impacts your considerations and activities. The pattern of energy attracting similar energy proposes that these considerations and activities make your world. You're not simply a latent eyewitness of the world, but rather a functioning member in making it. Part 18. The impact of culture in the circle of discernment. Culture assumes a critical part, a long ways past the limits of simple individual feelings. Culture, essentially, establishes the groundwork for your insight, affecting how you decipher and figure out your general surroundings. A strong focal point can radically change your point of view, giving an exceptional perspective that is grounded in shared convictions, customs, and practices. Contemplate how various societies see tone, for example. A few societies may not recognize blue and green, seeing them as varieties of a solitary tone. It isn't so much that they actually can't see the distinction, yet their social structure doesn't require recognizing them. You can see here how culture shapes discernment, directing you to handle data in manners that line up with your social standards. In addition, social impacts don't simply shape what you see, they likewise decide the significance you join to it. Think about the idea of time, for instance. In certain societies, time is seen as direct, a straight line moving from past to future. In others, it's recurrent, rotating in a circle. Your social foundation can significantly impact your view of time, whether it's something special to be completely overseen or more smoothly experienced. More or less, culture isn't simply a background to your life, a unique power effectively shapes your insight. It's the explanation you see the world as you do, giving a profoundly instilled construction to deciphering your encounters. Thus, recollect, not simply seeing prompts accepting, additionally your social convictions lead to seeing. Section 19 Social Molding. Expanding on the idea of culture forming discernment, it becomes obvious that social molding has a huge impact in this cycle. As you explore through the world, you're an onlooker, yet a functioning member. Your convictions, insights, and suspicions are continually being molded and reshaped by the social designs you're a piece of. Therefore, it's not only an instance of truth can be stranger than fiction, however more precisely, accepting is seeing. You want to comprehend that social molding isn't uninvolved. A functioning interaction includes the assimilation, translation, and assimilation of accepted practices, values, and convictions. From the second you're conceived, you're tossed into a world loaded with previous social develops. You're instructed to see and decipher the world in some ways, and these lessons frequently come from major cultural foundations like family, schooling, media, and religion. These organizations don't simply help you what to think, yet how to think. They impart specific mental designs to you that guide your discernments and understandings of the real world. For example, on the off chance that you're continually presented to the possibility that achievement rises to abundance, you'll probably see affluent people as effective, no matter what their own personality or morals. Basically, your insights are not absolutely founded on your tangible information sources, but rather are to a great extent impacted by your social molding. Thus, to really comprehend how accepting is seeing, you should exhume profoundly into your own social molding and question its effect on your discernments. This will permit you to all the more likely appreciate the perplexing transaction among conviction and insight. Part 20 Subtly influential ability. Frequently you may not understand exactly how much influence influential ability holds over your insights. This mental peculiarity, saturated with the complexities of human insight, reinforces the contention that conviction to be sure goes before discernment. Idea, on a very basic level, is an unpretentious yet useful asset that can influence your perspective and, subsequently, your insight. It very well may be pretty much as straightforward as a companion letting you know a film is fabulous, which sets your assumption to correspondingly see it. Or on the other hand, it very well may be all around as perplexing as a self-influenced consequence in medication, where accepting you're getting treatment can really prompt superior well-being results. Diving further, subtle influence isn't an independent component, it's profoundly entwined with your current convictions and encounters. Research in mental brain science recommends that when you're presented to an idea, your cerebrum doesn't simply latently acknowledge it. All things being equal, it effectively coordinates the idea with what it definitely knows, prompting a change in discernment. For example, assuming you're informed that a specific food is flavorful, your cerebrum doesn't just acknowledge that as truth. Rather, it draws on your previous encounters with comparable food varieties, your current convictions about taste, and the setting wherein the idea was made. This complex mental transaction at last impacts your view of the food's taste. Section 21 Significantly impacting our viewpoint. Consider the groundbreaking power a significantly impact in context can have on your discernment. The world you see is definitely not a proper reality, however an emotional translation formed by your convictions, perspectives, and encounters. It's not just about what you see, it's the means by which you see it. Your viewpoint, as such, decides your world. How about we investigate the mental brain science behind this perspective? Mental clinicians contend that the cerebrum doesn't simply get data from the faculties latently. All things being equal, it effectively deciphers and puts together this data in view of existing construction systems that assist us with getting a handle on the world. At the point when your viewpoint transforms, it changes these diagrams, and consequently, your understanding of the real world. For example, consider the popular duck hair deception. Contingent upon your viewpoint, you could see either a duck or a hare. Neither one of the translations is wrong, yet the way that you can move between them outlines how point of view shapes discernment. Yet, here's the core: really impacting your viewpoint isn't tied in with denying current realities. It's tied in with expanding how you might interpret them. You're not disposing of the duck to see the hare, you're perceiving that both can exist all the while. Section 22. Moving our existence. Envision venturing into a room with two mirrors, one mirroring the other, making a boundless pathway of reflections. This provides you with a significant point of view of the truth that is continually moving, similar as our own insights. What you're encountering isn't actual instant transportation, however, a psychological excursion through the passageways of insight, where your convictions can modify your world. How about we dig further into this idea? You've known about a self-influenced consequence, correct? It's a mental peculiarity where an individual's well-being works on not in view of a real clinical treatment, but rather on the grounds that they accept they're being dealt with. The psyche's strong conviction framework persuades the body that it's recuperating, prompting genuine actual changes. A similar standard applies to our more extensive reality. Consider this: when you trust in your capacities, you're bound to accomplish your objectives. This isn't enchantment. It's about how your conviction framework can impact your existence. At the point when you accept you can't, entryways close. At the point when you accept you can, entryways open. It's anything but an issue of genuinely changing your general surroundings, yet of moving your insight and therefore how you might interpret what's conceivable. Generally, accepting is seeing is about mental rebuilding. It's the most common way of testing and changing your discernments and convictions. You're not only a latent onlooker of the real world. You're a functioning member, embellishment, and molding your existence in view of the convictions you hold. Thus, assume command and recall: the world is as you see it since you see it as you are. Your conviction is your world. Part 23. The specialty of rethinking. While it might appear to be that our discernments are fixed, the craft of re-examining permits us to move our viewpoint and change our world. In a general sense, re-examining is a mental social strategy that includes reconsidering pessimistic or pointless considerations, sentiments, and encounters into positive or valuable ones. This change in context can enable you to see prospects where you once saw restrictions. Re-examining isn't tied in with denying reality or enjoying living in fantasy land. All things considered, it's tied in with tracking down a more certain, gainful method for review your encounters and conditions. It's tied in with checking out at a similar circumstance through an alternate focal point. For instance, you could re-examine a disappointment not as an impasse, but rather as a learning and open door. Rethinking requires practice and persistence. There's really no need to focus on unexpectedly producing another viewpoint, however, about intentionally deciding to diversely see things. The initial step is to recognize your ongoing viewpoint. Recognize the feelings and contemplations related with it. The subsequent stage is to challenge this viewpoint. Ask yourself, is this the best way to see what is happening? Might I at any point consider a more supportive method for interpreting it? The force of re-evaluating lies in its capacity to change your close-to-home reaction to circumstances, occasions, and encounters. By re-evaluating your viewpoint, you can change your feelings and responses, making a far-reaching influence that can significantly affect your general impression of the real world. So excel at rethinking, and you'll find that frequently, accepting truly is seeing. Part 24. The truth is a decision. Consistently, deliberately, or unwittingly, you're pursuing decisions that shape your world. This doesn't mean you're conjuring up actual articles or controlling spacetime. All things considered, your world is affected by your discernment, mentalities, convictions, and translations. To comprehend this, how about we examine the interaction among conviction and discernment? Mental brain research uncovers that what you see isn't generally the objective truth. Rather, your cerebrum develops a variant of reality in view of the improvements it gets, sifted through your own encounters, predispositions, and assumptions. Therefore, your existence is emotional, extraordinary, and pliable. To represent, think about optical deceptions. They challenge the colloquialism truth can be stranger than fiction since what you see goes against genuine reality. Your cerebrum figures out befuddling boosts in view of previous encounters and assumptions, prompting broken discernment. Here, conviction shapes seeing, not the opposite way around. Understanding that the truth is a decision enables you. You have no control over every one of the improvements that your cerebrum gets. Be that as it may, you can impact your insight and translation of these boosts. By changing your convictions and mentalities, you can shape how you see reality. This peculiarity is apparent in a self-influenced consequence. On the off chance that you accept an innocuous pill will mitigate your side effects, it frequently does. Essentially, assuming you have confidence in your ability to beat difficulties, you're probably going to succeed. This isn't simply sure reasoning. It's a statement to the force of confidence in developing your world. Part 25 Enabling our psyches. You're going to explore the mental scene of engaging our brains, tending to the meaning of an outlook shift, the force of insistences, breaking mental boundaries, zeroing in on potential, and the law of progress. By looking at these key regions, it's feasible to encourage a significant change in our view of the real world, thusly upgrading our capacity to make and mold our lives. In substance, our psyches hold fantastic power, and understanding how to bridle this power is vital in our excursion towards self-realization and achievement. A faltering 90% of people neglect to understand that an outlook shift is definitely not a short-term change yet a continuous cycle that requires persistence and decided exertion. You should comprehend that your brain, similar to a muscle, needs predictable activity to develop and adjust. It's anything but an occasion yet an excursion. Your mentality, your contemplations, and your insight make your world. At the point when you adjust your mentality, you're not simply altering your thinking designs, you're essentially changing the focal point through which you decipher your general surroundings. It's tied in with expanding your point of view and opening your brain to additional opportunities. Be that as it may, this interaction isn't without challenges. It requires mindfulness, strength, and an eagerness to step outside your usual range of familiarity. You might experience obstruction, both from the inside and from outer sources. In any case, recall, through defeating these hindrances genuine development happens. In the space of self-awareness, tackling the force of certifications can act as a strong device for enabling your psyche. Assertions are positive proclamations that are rehashed to oneself, with the intent to affect the psyche mind, accordingly impacting conduct propensities and perspectives. They're not simple inspirational statements, however essential expressions that can reshape your thinking designs and build up certainty. Presently, you might ask, for what reason does this work? It's grounded in brain adaptability, your cerebrum's capacity to redesign itself by shaping new brain associations. At the point when you rehash a certification, you're on a very basic level training your mind to trust that assertion. You're making a psychological reality that your mind begins adjusting to, thus changing your discernment and reaction to circumstances. To boost the adequacy of assertions, it's significant that they're outlined in the current state and communicated in the positive structure. For example, rather than "I will not bomb" say, "I'll succeed," this builds up energy and the sensation of outcome to you. It's an entrancing combination of brain science and neuroscience, and a statement to the psyche's dumbfounding pliability. You'll see that when you accept, you'll begin seeing. Part 26 Breaking Mental Hindrances. A large number of us harbor a large number of mental obstructions that frustrate our true capacity and cut off our accomplishments. These boundaries, frequently inconspicuous, resemble chains that tight spot us, keeping us from arriving at the levels we're able to do. They're builds through our own effort, worked from our apprehensions, frailties, and past disappointments. Breaking these psychological boundaries requires cognizant exertion, contemplation, and a change in context. You should recognize their reality before you can start to destroy them. Begin by distinguishing the negative contemplations that keep you down. Is it true or not that you fear disappointment? Do you question your capacities? Whenever you've perceived these obstructions, challenge them. Question their legitimacy. Could it be said that they depend on truth, or would they say they are the result of your own self-question? You'll frequently find they're the last option. Then, supplant these negative considerations with positive attestations. Rather than letting yourself know you can't follow through with something, tell yourself you can. This isn't tied in with deceiving yourself into trusting something that isn't accurate, it's tied in with moving your attitude to zero in on your capacities as opposed to your restrictions. Breaking mental obstructions is an enabling cycle. It's tied in with recovering command over your psyche, and thus, your life. Having broken those deliberate mental obstructions, you are currently ready to channel your energies towards tapping your inner potential. This isn't tied in with outfitting what's as of now clear, rather, about revealing and developing the tremendous chance exists in you. Your true capacity is a strong yet undiscovered supply. It's the inconspicuous, the unmanifested, the not yet exposed. It's the thing you're equipped for accomplishing, not simply what you've proactively achieved. It's the material of your future, trusting that your conviction will paint it into reality. Presently, zeroing in on your true capacity requires a change in context. You should quit seeing yourself from the perspective of your past exhibitions, and on second thought, see yourself with respect to your future abilities. You're not restricted by what you've been, however enabled by what you could turn into. In addition, this emphasis on potential ought not be a periodic undertaking. It ought to be a reliable, cognizant practice, an everyday recommitment to moving your mentality, to trusting prior to seeing. Along these lines, you'll generally adjust your world, showing your undiscovered capacity into unmistakable achievement. Not set in stone to tap your true capacity, you should understand the idea of the law of progress. This rule, vital to personal growth and self-awareness, sets that progress is a steady, bit-by-bit process. It recognizes that achievement isn't accomplished quickly, however through constant, steady exertion. The law of progress advances a development outlook, underlining the force of persistent learning and improvement. It sets that you needn't bother with to be wonderful to accomplish your objectives, you simply should be preferable over you were yesterday. It urges you to see disappointments not as mishaps, but rather as any open doors to learn and develop. Understanding this regulation, you'll understand that your excursion towards progress is definitely not a straight, rising line. All things being equal, a bended way rhythmic movements. You'll figure out how to see the value in each forward-moving step, regardless of how little. You'll comprehend that occasionally you'll move forward and one stage back. Also, that is totally fine. Since progress, as characterized by this regulation, isn't about speed or flawlessness. It's about bearing. However long you're pushing ahead, you're gaining ground. To proceed with our investigation of self-improvement, we should consider the job of positive self-talk, a useful asset for engaging our brains. Positive self-talk, a mental and mental-social strategy, includes moving your internal exchange from negative to positive. It's actually not necessary to focus on careless idealism, but instead about supporting a sensible, uplifting perspective. Your psyche, a complex organ, tunes in and answers the language you use. Positive self-talk prepares your mind to take on a confident story, influencing your perspectives, ways of behaving, and in general mental health. This training advances strength and diminishes pressure, cultivating a proactive way to deal with life's difficulties. It's a straightforward yet significant technique for upgrading self-discernment and supporting self-strengthening. Section 27 Beating self-uncertainty in your excursion of self-awareness, conquering self-question is a significant stage towards enabling your psyche. This psychological snag frequently comes from negative encounters or past disappointments and appears as an interior voice that questions your capacities and worth. It's anything but a short-term interaction, and it doesn't include destroying question out and out. Rather, it's tied in with figuring out how to oversee and answer successfully to these questions. The primary key methodology is affirmation. Perceive oneself uncertainty waiting to you. Try not to overlook it. All things being equal, give it space and figure out that it's a characteristic reaction to testing circumstances. Then, you want to challenge these questions. Might it be said that they depend on realities or presumptions? Examine the proof that upholds your questions. As a rule, you'll find they're founded on unwarranted feelings of trepidation or previous encounters that don't characterize your future. Ultimately, practice self-sympathy. Missteps and disappointments are essential for life. Rather than condemning yourself for them, consider these encounters to be open doors for learning and development. Keep in mind, your value isn't characterized by your slip-ups, however by your obligation to gain and develop from them. Generally, defeating self-question is tied in with recognizing, testing, and answering empathetically to your questions to enable your psyche. Having overseen and answered really to self-question, you're currently prepared to additionally invigorate your brain by developing inward fortitude. This isn't just about being intellectually intense. It's tied in with enabling your brain to endure the tempests of life and fashioning a versatility that is established in your guiding principle and convictions. To do this, you really want to grasp the double idea of internal strength. In the first place, there's versatility, the capacity to recuperate from or change effectively to setback or change. This isn't tied in with denying torment or difficulty, yet rather crossing through them with effortlessness and assurance. The subsequent part is perseverance, the ability to endure exhaustion, postponement, or incitement without giving way. This includes clutching your qualities and convictions, in any event, when they're tested or tried. Developing internal fortitude likewise requires mindfulness. You must perceive your feelings, acknowledge them, and afterward conclude how you'll answer them. It's tied in with being proactive, not receptive. It's tied in with picking your reaction as opposed to allowing your feelings to control you. Along these lines, it's not truth can be stranger than fiction, it's accepting is seeing. Consider a self-influenced consequence patients accept they're getting treatment and frequently their condition moves along. Their conviction, not the genuine treatment, shapes their existence. By re-examining our convictions, we can move our existence. It's not necessary to focus on detached perception, it's tied in with enabling our brains to make the world we experience. Keep in mind, your convictions are the designer of your world. Make them help you out. Gratitude for paying attention to or perusing this from Book Recordings Office.